Back
Start
and
recording
back and back. I just started. We are recording. So for those of you who are not comfortable with your face in a recording, know that we are recording. We did that with Nadia's also, but I can't imagine any of you have any issues with that. Ooh, Maria looks like she's at a really fun place right now.
Not naturally.
We are moving into our part 2 of Icebreaker to DTM. This is being presented by our very own Club Growth Director. She has some experience that she is wanting to share with us. She has done lots of investigation and research. She's going to bring us all the answers on what happens after the 2 levels. Please help me welcome Jean Williams, Club Growth Director, Distinguished Toastmaster. Take it away, Jean.
Thank you, Carol. So one thing too, for those of you, okay, let me start by saying, I shook hands with Pathways, but I can't say I embraced it until recently. And one of the things that took me down the path of Pathways was when I heard somebody ask yourself these questions now, why did I join Toastmasters? And then ask yourself, why do I stay? And listen to your answers. Did you say in either of your answers, I joined because of the legacy educational method, or I stay because of Pathways? No, you stay because the people, the connections, learning to be a leader, learning to be a better speaker, learning all the things, learning about other people, the networking. But very, very few people join just because the educational method, and very few people stay only because the educational method. So if you end up with a member that says, I don't like Pathways, ask them those 2 questions. And hopefully they'll give you the answers to say, but you didn't mention legacy and you didn't mention Pathways. So it's just a tool that we need to get where we want to get. And when we look at it that way, there's a lot of great things in this tool that we have. Nadia covered the first 2 paths, getting those, and she also touched on the Distinguished Toastmaster Project. And I'm going to go into a little more detail. Let me share my screen, Carol. Yes, I can. Thank you. So first, I'll just start with where to find this, because I think we kind of assume people know where it's at, and it isn't always that easy to find. Okay. So if you go to, of course, we know where we're at, Toastmasters International. I've already signed in. And if you go to education and then click on education again, it will bring up this education page. And if you just scroll down here on the left to the words Distinguished Toastmaster, there it is where it lists everything required. Because before, actually, I'll be honest, until recently, I did not embrace Pathways right away. I'm not going to lie. But until recently, I thought, okay, you do 2 paths, you're done. And it wasn't until actually Kristen and Carol were talking about, oh, the other projects. I said, there's more. So there is more. And that's what we're discussing today. If you look at number 1 on the list, of course, complete 2 learning paths. Some of these are not changed at all. And so I won't touch on a lot of detail on that. I'll touch on the changes, the big changes. So number 2, serve as a club officer for 12 months. Of course, if you have 6-month terms, that can be broken apart. It doesn't have to be consecutive. Number 3, serve a complete 1-year term as a district officer, which is why most people become area directors. But hopefully you also realize the fun of being an area director and how much you can help the clubs and meet other people, meet people you not would have ever met if you didn't become a district officer. Then this next one is serve successfully as a club mentor or coach. What's missing there is sponsor. It used to say, if you look at the left, it's club sponsor, mentor, or coach. If you look over here to the left at number 5, Pathways divides it up. So be real careful of that. It's not the 3, a choice of 1 of 3 anymore. You have to serve successfully as a club mentor or coach. And of course, being a successful club coach is getting that club to distinguish by June 30th. So you're working with them, helping them, praying with them, and everything else you can possibly think of to get that club to successful. And the nice thing is they need you as much as you need them. So it's really a win-win. Then you also have be a club mentor. Now, club mentor is when a new club is formed, the new club has 2 sponsors, and the 2 sponsors get that club from idea to chartering. So from the time, for example, we're working on authors and aspiring authors right now, from the time it became an idea where we had one meeting with people coming together until it charters and we actually are an official club, our club sponsor works with us until that date. At the date when we charter, from that day for 6 months is the club mentor. You're not guaranteed a club mentor spot. If you look at, for example, right now we have 2 clubs that are getting toward chartering, but there's a lot more Toastmasters in our district than the 2 clubs we're working on. The way to guarantee you get a club mentor gig is that if you help create the club. Another way is if you are working very diligently with someone who is working to form the club. But it's not a guarantee. So please don't wait until you're really close to getting your DTM and call either me or the current club growth director and say, okay, I'm ready to sponsor a club, because the answer is going to be, sorry, I don't have those clubs for you to sponsor. To mentor rather, but the mentor stays for 6 months, hopefully a little bit longer, because hopefully they're a resource for the club. And they are the ones who help the new club. Some new clubs form with 20 brand new to Toastmaster people. They need all the help they can get because everybody's starting at the exact same time, at the exact same moment, like a corporate club, for example. That's how I started. All of us trooped in a room. We all said, hey, this is cool. We all signed papers. And all of a sudden, here were our 2 mentors with a room full of 25 of us who had never even heard of Toastmasters. So it's not an easy job necessarily. Other clubs form as advanced with existing Toastmasters, but that still doesn't make it easy, because sometimes then you're having to battle with, no, you guys need to get on pathways. So there's a lot to that job. But number 5 is a different requirement, and that is to serve successfully as a club sponsor, conduct a speechcraft or a youth leadership project. I mentioned what sponsors were already. Speechcraft is usually about an 8-week program. Clubs can use it. Typically, it's a tool, a member building tool used by clubs, where it's held out as an a self-contained educational program for anyone who wants to learn about Toastmasters, be involved, go through an education program, but not really committed to staying for an indefinite length of time. So the Speechcraft has the 8 weeks. You typically give a speech at least every other meeting, sometimes every meeting. You go through different projects and different exercises, and you complete your Speechcraft. Hopefully the person enjoys it, they stay in Toastmasters. They may not, they might just be that one thing that happens the one time and then they're done. I think most of us or all of us know Jesse Oakley. He actually started with Speechcraft. I think he went through it several times before he joined Toastmasters. It's very common in colleges and at different points like that, even for example, in a senior citizens facility, because it is minimal cost to the people who participate. Usually the club will pay the Speechcraft fees if a club sponsors it. Youth leadership program is almost identical as Speechcraft, but it's for people under 18. Because if they're 18 or older, they can join a regular Toastmaster club. And then number 6 is your Distinguished Toastmaster Project. So if we look at, this only part of this that's interactive is where it says Distinguished Toastmaster Award Application. So if you click on that, if you really like filling things out, well, like I do, you can fill it out as you go along and make sure you're completing everything. You have your 2 paths here under path completion. Of course, my information, you already know that. Your Distinguished Toastmaster Project, the date you completed that. Your club officer role completion. These are the exact same requirements we just went over. Your district leader role completion. Now, the one thing that I noticed on this is it is very specific that you have to complete a full term from July 1st until June 30th. And I could not find any exception. And the reason I say that is that under the legacy program, it still had the complete term. But if you get in before, if somebody say starts in July and realizes by August that isn't for them, and you take over in August or anytime before September 1st, you work for 10 months as a district officer, that counts as a full term. I don't know that there's that exception under pathways. I could not find that exception. So this appears to be the full term. So no if you are working with people now as your role as area director or division director, encourage them to shadow you or talk to you so that they can learn what the job is. It's very unfortunate when somebody takes it for 3 months, decides it isn't for them, and the person who takes over and does all the hard work doesn't get credit toward their district leader role. So I encourage people to learn from you now so that they're ready to apply in January and know what they're getting into, know what they're going to get and what they can expect as an area director. Then, of course, the club mentor or club coach role completion. The club coach, just briefly, the club has to agree and vote you in as their club coach, or at least agree and have you as their club coach. And then they sign an application, well, not application, they fill out the form. The club officer, the club president signs it. Then it gets submitted to me to make sure you get the credit to be club coach. But you don't get the credit until June 30th when the club is distinguished. Then club sponsor, speechcraft leadership, we went over that. And then somebody will verify the officer. But I want you to notice one thing that actually kind of snuck up on me yesterday when I was finishing preparation for this class. If you look at the club officer role completion, it also says way down here in the fine print of this, well, it's not fine print, but on page 1, it says preparation of a club success plan. Ideally, a club does a club success plan at least once a year. But if you're like me, I've only been in one club that did a club success plan. This is very specific that you have to do a club success plan. So in a moment, I'll show you where those are at. I'm gonna see, Carol, do we have any questions in chat so far that I can answer for anybody before we go on?
There's a statement that being a district officer, even if you come in before September, we think it's still being honored. And the next question is, don't club coaches have 2 years to get the club to distinguished? And you can answer that one.
Okay. The only reason that now they have the 2 years is because we're in the pandemic. Well, okay, let me back up. You have as much time as it takes. You can be a club coach for years, but you're not going to get credit until the June 30th in which the club is distinguished. But as far as giving you the extended time, I think that was, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you.
No, they've always had 2 years to be
always had
able
2 years.
to. Yeah, they've always had 2 years.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I've learned something new. Okay, now I've learned something new. Thank you. Thank you very much. I've been a club coach for a club that is struggling, and it's been the longer than 2 years, but I know that the credit won't be until they get to distinguished. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because actually, yeah, well, I guess I did have to reapply, come to think of it. Yes, thank you. So yeah, the 2 years, thank you. Well, there we go. See, even no matter how much you prep, you don't know every question somebody's going to ask. So there we go. So let me then go back to our Toastmaster district where our list was and show you where to find the information about the club success plan. It's just as simple as going to I just went to the home page, I typed in the search bar. And again, if you're in a club that doesn't do a club success plan every year, especially if you're struggling right now with membership, now might be the perfect time to ask your club if you can't do a club success plan. And then you can also work with counting that toward your distinguished Toastmaster. So here, if you look at the club success plan, it just brings up a search bar. I just typed in club success plan up here in the top search bar. And then it brings up content. And here's your club success plan. It gives you a place to download it. It gives you the form. There's a whole booklet about it. If you look at the form here, it gives them more detail. And it's basically, most clubs I've seen, the clubs I've seen that have done it will usually do it over 2 different meetings, because it's a chance for the club to give feedback of how can we make our club better. You're bringing all the members of the club together to brainstorm and think of ways to make the club better so the club can be more successful. It's a good way to regroup and also maybe something that you've been doing for years isn't quite working anymore. Now's the time to tweak it, make your club even better and stronger. But it goes over these forms. There's also a book that goes with this. So if you see all the, it's quite a lengthy thing. It might be where you devote a whole meeting or even 2 meetings to the club success plan. It is helpful, but it is long. But anything that, when you're talking about revamping, maybe not revamping the club, but really examining how can our club be better, stronger, faster, all of that. So that's the club success plan. I also want to show you how to find the distinguished Toastmaster project. Nadia touched on it, so I want to show you in more detail what it entails. So what I've done is just go to education. Let me make sure, because this is unfortunately a little bit harder to find than it should be. The list we just looked at ideally should be interactive, where you can just click on everything, and unfortunately it's not. But if you go to, I just went to education. Oh, no, I'm sorry, this is a different place. Excuse me. So I go to my base camp. I just click my name and then go to base camp. And then, of course, the pop-up blocker. Then we go to paths and learning, our education transcript. And here in this search bar, if we type in DTM project, this is a lot harder than it should be. I realize that, but there is actually a whole check sheet. And it's actually the second item down on this list. If you go to mark, where it says mark complete, you'll pick the one that says launch. And you can launch any project in any order, which is a nice thing that happened recently. But here's your project description. Nadia talked about this, and if you can see that you have quite a few, the project includes your selecting the project, your framework resource, all these different worksheets you fill out. It gives you a 360 evaluation resource, which is where you ask the people that interacted with you in the project to give you feedback. And then you have your 2 speeches that go along with it. So it is similar to the HPL, but it is a lot less rigid as far as having as Nadia mentioned, the 5 meetings with your 2 committees and all of that. Now, to unlock the DTM project, you have to have completed 1 full path and have completed at least level 3 in your second path. Then you contact, and this is written right here at the very top of this sheet, contact World Headquarters to access this project once the following requirements have been met. You'll contact them by email or by phone. You must have completed 1 full path and through level 3 of a second different path. Then you can ask it to be unlocked. And that's when you receive all of the whole package about what you're supposed to do. But it does give you an idea of what you would be doing on this Distinguished Toastmaster check sheet. So be careful. I know somebody found out that I think he'd completed the 5 levels in the 1 and completed the 3 levels in the next path. And they come back and said, no, because you didn't pick that final box on level 5 of the other one. So they didn't show the level, the 1 full path being complete. They showed the 5 levels being complete, which isn't always the same thing. Okay, so that is the Distinguished Toastmaster project, and that is all the requirements. Does anybody have any questions or comments or any problems they want to share that they're running into, or any victories they would like to share with us?
Jean, one of the questions in the chat came up, can you set up a team of club members to set up the plan, our side of the club meeting, and present the plan? And go ahead.
I would think so, but the beauty of the club success plan is that you got all the members to buy into it. If you had a separate meeting outside the club, you end up with schedule conflicts, you end up with some people that may feel excluded, or if you had it where it's only club officers, I could see the club members not having the buy-in that you would want them to have. The club success plan is designed for the club as a whole. to come together and make their club better. And it might be that one brand new member that has the best ideas because they're brand new to Toastmasters, and they might be the one that says, you know, the first time I came, I really didn't understand this, or I really didn't know about that. Or do we have a mentor program? So sometimes it's that one brand new person that you need on the committee. So I think if there's any way to do it in the club, and if you're like a lot of the clubs right now where your membership's a little on the downside, that might be the perfect time to do it. Because if you're at a situation where your club has 8 or 9 members and you're struggling, now might be the perfect time to take a club meeting or two and to go through it. That gives you this framework you need to add new members to a strong club. And also, most members in that situation are getting the time to do their speeches, so you're not bumping somebody off a schedule that needs to be moving their progress forward with a speech at that moment. Any other questions? Wow, so I thought I'd be going over and I'm running under. Nadia did mention the HPLs. I would say, I know there are people who are skirting the HPLs just by picking paths that they wouldn't normally want because the path they really like has the HPL with the High Performance Leadership Project. Don't steer away from it for that, because remember, you can pick what you're covering in your HPL. It can be, especially as area directors and division directors, keep this in mind. There are many, many, many people before you and after you who will use their area contests or division contests as their HPL. Something you have to do anyway. You have to do your club contest, or you're not your club, but your division or area contest anyway. You can make that as your HPL. There's nothing wrong with it. A lot of people do it. I personally didn't, because I wanted to do something completely different that wasn't a requirement of the job. But if you are shying away from the HPL because I can't think of any big project, you have big projects. Also, the district has interesting projects that you could help with, or your work might have a big project that could qualify. It doesn't have to be through Toastmasters. It doesn't have to be Toastmaster related. Don't shy away from a path just because you see the letters HPL. It's just don't, because you're here to learn about yourself and to learn about leadership, to make your job, your career, your better, or just have fun. And you can pick an HPL or a Distinguished Toastmaster project that fits into a passion of yours, or a charity that you enjoy, or just something you have wondered about doing. It can be something fun. It can be anything along that line. So don't shy away from it just because you see Distinguished Toast. Well, you have to do the Distinguished Toastmaster project, but don't shy away from a path just because it has an HPL. Please don't. It can be a lot of fun. It can be something that is worthwhile and that is fun. Any questions, comments, concerns? Oh, yes, Chris.
Not really a question, but I was kind of dragging my feet about working on an HPL because I didn't know, there's not really any groups where I'm part of to be able to kind of have that team. So that's good to know that that would apply to creating an area contest here. And that seems like a great project to work on and get recognition for that in the form of getting your HPL.
Yeah. Like also we did, for example, we did the social media tour, which brought together 7 clubs doing open houses, each covering a different branch of social media. Then we had one of the people who wanted to do one of the long projects, the 45-minute project of presentation mastery, the long speech. So I brought all those components together and did the social media tour, advertised it as an open house event. That would easily be an HPL. It wasn't especially hard. It wasn't especially, it was interesting to me. It was fun to me. It gave me the opportunity to talk to different people in different clubs. It gave me an opportunity to advertise, to learn a lot. Something like that even could easily be an HPL, just bringing people and committees and components together. The only thing I would have had to add to make it an official HPL would be to have a planning committee and meet with them a few times. And You can also sometimes combine the meetings, like for my HPL, instead of having 5 different meetings, I had one long meeting where I covered the first 2 components, a meeting in the middle, and a meeting at the end where I covered the last 2 components. So I covered all the information from the 5 different meetings by making it 3 meetings. And with it being in Zoom now instead of in person, it's a lot easier to meet with your committee. Yes, Ralph.
Hi, good afternoon, Jean. I have a quick question on HPL because I'm currently area director for Area A4, and I also need to complete my HPL. So is there a conflict in conducting your own area contest and use it as an HPL, or you cannot do that because you're an area director for your area?
You can do that. You can. I personally didn't want to because I wanted to just do something. I already had something in mind I wanted to do, but many people do it and have done it for years and years at your contest. As long as you're doing all the other requirements of HPL, like you're setting up a committee, you're having people work. The purpose of it is to teach you how to let you learn about your leadership skills by how you work with others. That's how I looked at the purpose of it. So you're setting up a guidance committee that's giving you ideas and suggestions, maybe ways to make your contest different or more fun or a little exciting in addition to just the contest portions. Then you're also meeting with your planning committees. Maybe you need to have someone who sets up online. It's a little bit easier than in person, but you still need to have a Zoom master. You need to have a logistics chair and all that. And if you're just having to go out and find the people or find someone to find the people, you're working with committees, you're learning about yourself as a leader. So it still would fall into the guidance of an HPL.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, I think that I'm at the green card, but if anybody has any questions, has anybody, maybe somebody who did an HPL other than their own contest that wants to share what they did in a minute or so?
I didn't use an area contest when I did my first HPL. I did it as being a president's distinguished area. So it was one of those that I planned it out at the beginning of the year. That was my goal. I got all the clubs in my area on board, had each of the presidents of each of those clubs on my committee. We met regularly, and it helped us to become a president's distinguished area.
That's good. Yeah, Kristen.
The other thing is I want to make sure everybody knows that your project does not have to relate to Toastmasters. We've had, if you guys know Jesse Oakley, his wife, Dana Wall Oakley, her HPL was planning their wedding. Michelle Schaaf, who's a member of Morelli House, she was running for Clark County Assessor, and her HPL was on getting elected. So it doesn't have to relate to Toastmasters. If you're already doing a project at work, or you've been assigned something that can work as an HPL, then that's fine. Just make sure that you have Toastmaster members who are on your committees so that they are there to advise you, but your topic can be something unrelated to Toastmasters.
Well, also your committees, your guidance committee, which is above you, so to speak, and your what's the other your committee that's helping you get the work done. You don't have to have any toast. You have to have ideally one Toastmaster on your guidance committee, but all the rest can be people who are not Toastmasters. So if you are doing a work project, your guidance committee might be your manager and the department head of another department, and then a Toastmaster might be in the mix somewhere. If you don't have one in your company, you might end up meeting with that person separate than the people from work. You have to be creative, but you can actually have your guidance committee being completely non-Toastmasters as long as you have one person in there who is, because that's the person who's going to say, yeah, that is what the HPL is meant to do. Jean.
I always like to brag about myself, so I'll tell about my HPL project. I wanted to do something to improve Toastmasters and help out the district. Well, how about the clubs in Las Vegas is how it started. The first thing happened was Free Toast Host came in, and it was difficult to set up. There was no like now there is a bunch of written material on it, how to do it and how to set it up. When it first came out, it was, here it is. And you open the box and you got all the pieces, but it wasn't put together. So I set up my HPL to give clubs in Las Vegas and in the Las Vegas area a Toastmaster website. So I set up Free Toast host websites for probably most of the clubs in town, not the new ones that have opened since. But when District 33 found out what I was doing, they said, hey, we'd like to be included. So there were 233 clubs that I helped work on to set up Free Toast host. And it's got me in trouble now because everybody's asking me Free Toast host questions. So I take all those too.
Well, he is still our go-to guy. Well, I am out of time. Thank you very much, everybody. If you have any questions, I know Nadia or I, or as Nadia said, the trio, everybody's here to help you. If you run into any questions from your clubs, we are here. We have the support you need. We want you to be successful and we want your clubs to be successful. I'm clapping.